How to run Facebook ads without losing money. That's the topic for today's video. And if you're a local business, a small business, this is going to be an important video because working with a lot of small businesses, from pest control to medical spas to periodontists, one thing that I know is that every dollar counts, right? I've worked with some of the biggest bigger companies that have six-figure ad budgets, and I've worked with local businesses that don't. And this is a key topic that's top of mind for those local businesses because, number one, you're confined to a 10, 15, 20 mile radius, and then you also have a bunch of competitors in the area. So how do you get attention, right? How do you break through the noise? How do you get in front of the prospects without spending a lot of money and get them in effectively? So that's what I want to go over in today's video. I've written some notes, so if I look down, that's what I'm looking at. But before I kind of go into the technical aspects of Facebook and anything like that, I just want to talk about marketing in general, because what I've noticed is as technology gets more advanced, right? We have augmented reality coming and all these type of things, right? Drones flying around now. Marketing is relatively as simple as it was back in the 1920s, the 1910s, the 1900s. And what do I mean by that, right? So let me erase the board real quick. So if you read, I have a bookshelf right here, but if you read a lot of direct marketing books from some of the best marketers of all time, David Ogilvy, John Caples, Joseph Sugarman, Bob Bly, if you read some of these guys, basically all marketing is putting a compelling message in front of the right target audience. So let me draw that. So in marketing, you need just three things. Right? You need a list of prospects, the qualified prospects. You need something to offer them, right? And that's the good thing about local businesses is, it's not like these internet businesses nowadays, but you really, for example, I work with a periodontist. He gives people dental implants. He gives people, dentures and things like that. So you need something to offer, which is usually pretty straightforward when it comes to local businesses. I work with a lot of software companies as well. It gets a little bit harder with that. But for small to local businesses, this is pretty much taken care of. And the last thing you need is just a compelling message. So when clients bring me on, it's usually for this part, right? Hooks. How do I start my advertisements? What do I say? That's probably the biggest question. Is like, Andrew, I would do Facebook ads if I knew what to say, right? So I kind of want to spend a lot of time. I want to spend a lot of time on this part right here, because I can't really do much about this. If you're in pest control, you're in pest control. If you're a medical spa, you're a medical spa. So I don't really have control over that part, but I do have control over these two. And since this is a little bit more complex, let me dive deep into the list of prospects really quickly. So one thing that's gotten a lot of buzz as of recently is thought leadership, right? I worked with a company, and that was kind of our mantra, right? We turn consultants into thought leaders. That was really our message. And there's two ways to think about thought leadership, right? There's a famous quote from, I forgot who it is, some professor at Harvard, but he says the purpose of marketing is to make sales superfluous, right? And as a local business owner, if you have secretaries and staff that's on the phones, especially probably you yourself have done it, that there's sales that are a little bit easier, right? When people are a little bit more in a dire situation, or they really desire the product, and their sales is a little bit harder. Now, the purpose of marketing is to make sales easy, right? So that's one thing about thought leadership, right? And authority building is what I'm going to call it, right? Because in order to have good advertising, you need to have authority, right? So authority building. The reason why you need that, number one, is to make sales easy. Right? Make sales superfluous. Get people to know, like, and trust you. That way when you sell them your offer, it's a lot easier. But the second thing that's not really talked about anywhere, like there's nobody talking about this, is the more authority you build, the easier it is to create a list of prospects. So what do I mean by that? If you have tried Facebook ads in the past, YouTube ads, anything like that, you realize that, you know, Facebook has a couple different features, right? So first they have boosting posts, which I rarely ever use, and if you've used that watching this video, it probably hasn't worked out well for you, which is unfortunate because that you know, that's what Facebook is like always right there for you to do, but you should never do that. If you go into the ads manager, you have something Facebook calls as interest targeting, right? So Facebook allows you to target by interest. And what do I mean by that? If you are somebody who is, I'm trying to think of an example. If you do medical spas, for example, you might want to target people who like similar TV shows, like, or better example, if you do construction, or if you're, you know, home model or interior designer or things like that, you might want to target people who like home makeover. If you sell bridal gowns, you might want to do people who like say yes to the dress. If you do pest control, you might want to target people who like Home Depot or do-it-yourself type of things. Or maybe yet, you might want to target moms who like home, like, you know what I mean? So you have to really look at your target audience. Who are they, and what do they like? And then Facebook gives you the option to target by interest, right? Now, the thing about this, which is why this is a little bit harder, we call this cold audiences. Right. And the reason why it's cold is because while we target people who like and specific interests, while that does give them an opportunity or show us that they might be interested in our product, that is really all it shows. It just shows that they have a potential, right? So interest targeting on Facebook just shows us they have a potential to be a customer, right? Now you might be asking, okay, well, that's what a prospect is, right? A prospect, really, the definition of a prospect is a potential customer. But the problem is when you spend money, right? If you look at the right-hand column on Facebook, you might pick one interest, and if you're in a big metropolitan area like Dallas, Texas, it might give you, you know, 500,000 people. So yeah, a potential to be a customer is great if you get 1,000, right? But the problem is, you know that there's probably not, you know, the market isn't probably 500,000 or 1 million or 3 million. Like I've done this to see 3 million. So how the trick is when you're doing Facebook ads, YouTube ads, and even AdWords, but I won't go there, that's a different lesson, is you want to get this number down so the money that you're spending is getting in front of people that you know are really potential customers, not just potential to be potential customers. So how do you do that? That's where thought leadership and authority building comes in. Because what happens is, if you create content, especially how-to content, right? Giving people valuable information and what they call result in advance, right? So if you are a medical spa, if you give me some DIY, do-it-yourself tips that I can do by myself without you, now I slowly start to trust you a little bit more, right? If you're a pest control owner, if you give me some examples on how to eliminate rodents in my house without you, then I will start to trust you. Because really, what, you know, I worked with a client, and she was in corporate wellness, and one thing she was always afraid of was, you know, I don't want to give my best secrets because what else do I have to offer, right? Somebody's going to come steal it, or, you know, they might do it themselves. And what you need to realize is that for the most part, we're lazy, right? Especially you as a business owner, you know that you can probably do everything in your company, right? Usually the best owners can do anything. They can get on the phone, they can sell the best, they can manage the best, they can do, not necessarily the books the best, but every part of the company that's important, you could probably do it. But do you want to do that? No. And that's the same thing with humans, right? That's why I'm going to give you my secret. Right? I mean, clients pay me thousands of dollars to do this stuff, but I'm going to give it out for free because I know a lot of people aren't going to act on it. So what you really want to do is the byproduct of that. People aren't going to act on it, but they're going to recognize me as the authority in it. So that's the same thing you want to do, is you want to create content, how-to type of content, 7 steps to doing type of content that gives your prospects results in advance. That way they trust you as a byproduct. Now, there's 2 effects that's going to happen. 1, that's going to make sales easier, make sales superfluous. And then number 2, it's going to narrow your audience so when you do create a sales type of piece or a direct marketing piece, you're getting in front of the right audience for a lot cheaper. So it's going to narrow your audience to real prospects. Right? Now, how does it do that? You might be asking. Well, if there's a you know, a buzz term, not necessarily a buzz term, but there's a word that explains. It's called retargeting or remarketing. And what you can do on Facebook is Facebook allows you to target people who watched 50% of your video, 75% of your video, 90% of your video. They also do like 5%, but we don't really want to focus on that because 5% of your video, people are not interested in. But if you target, right, so let's do a case study example. I'm gonna use my client from Dallas, Texas, right, who sells, he's a periodontist, does a lot of dental implants. So, he sells dental implants. So, let's just say in McKinney, right, we want to target people in Dallas, Fort Worth, and let me actually erase the bottom too. So we want to target people in Dallas, Fort Worth. Now, in Facebook, that might give me 15 million people, right? Okay. Now, we don't want to do billboard advertising, so we don't want to just spend money to get in front of 15 million people, so we need to narrow that down. So, interest. What's some things people would like that a dentist would like, right? So, for this, we actually used a different technique. We actually ran a contest for him, but we won't get into that. So let's just say I pick a random interest. It gets it down. So if you're a pest control individual business owner, you might want to target, like I said, Home Depot. So let's just say we pick one of those medical spas. You might want to target somebody who reads a beauty magazine or something like that, right? So let's just say we pick an interest. It gets it down to 3 million. Right? So that means everybody who lives in Dallas, Fort Worth, who likes this interest, it gives us 3 million people. Now, we don't want the audience to be that big because that's too big, and usually a small business's budget, we're not going to be able to have enough budget to get in front of those 3 million people. So we want to narrow this down further for real customers. So what we start doing is we start having the business owner create content, right? So he creates a how-to, you know, how to treat tooth pain, right? Again, this is not a good headline, but I'm gonna get into headlines a little bit later. But he creates a video, how to treat tooth pain, right? And we promote this, we put some money behind that. Now, everybody on Facebook, and this is an option, everybody who watched 50% of this video now gets it to 100, let's just say 70,000. Now, this is a good audience right there. Now, we went all the way from 15 million to 70,000 people. Now, this is an audience we now want to run sales promotions to. Now, the good thing about this is, number one, this is a small audience, so we can actually spend and get in front of them. Number two, this audience, not only is it smaller, but also it already knows, like, and trusts my client, so this sales promotion is more likely to hit, right? So when it comes to authority building, it's not just putting out content to put out content, it's putting out content to narrow your audience so you can actually get in front of them when you spend money, and also when you do get in front of them, they know, like, and trust you. So now let's get to the most pressing question. Okay, what do I say? Let me erase the whiteboard and I'll get right into that. So every good message, every strong message really has three components, right? So, strong message. The three components are, number one, attention. This is probably the most important asset in 2018 going forward is attention. You need attention. Right? We have Facebook, we have Instagram, we have Snapchat, we have Pinterest, we have Musical.ly, we have Facebook, we have direct mail, we have billboards, we have TV. So attention is divided, right? Not only is attention divided, but then you also have millions and millions of people advertising on these platforms. So really the battle is with attention. The second thing that you need is you need clear communication. Like, do people understand what they're getting? Right? Some clients have more complex products than others, and what we really have to focus on is articulating that product in a way that people get it, right? Using metaphors, using similes and comparisons and things like that. So if you have one client I used to work for, he had a online university, and what he called it is the Netflix of business learning, right? So it's like, oh, okay, I get it, right? So clear communication. Number three, you need a call to action, right? So let's get into attention, number one. So how do you get attention, right? It's easy to say, hey, the world's divided up. The amount of times I heard the stat that, people get I don't even remember, 1 million marketing messages a day, something crazy like that. Okay, cool, so that's the problem. Now, how do you get attention? Now, there's a few tips that I wrote here. There's a couple ways you need to get attention. Number one, you need to understand the self-interests of your prospects, right? So the old saying, when I remember I was in high school, I picked up, I think it was Tony Robbins. He was like, the way to be interesting is to be interested, right? And I learned that trying to get girls, but it's the same thing in marketing, right? You need to know the self-interests of your prospect, right? So you need to know self-interests of prospect. So you need to know the self-interest of your prospect. Number two, you need to evoke curiosity. One of the things that has worked successfully for me, my clients, and in my marketing career is once I realized that really the only thing that gets people to act is knowledge gaps, right? This is a term used by Agora, which is behemoth in direct response. Really, you have to evoke knowledge gaps in people, right? You have to promise them something of self-interest, and the only way they're going to read your piece or watch your video is if they want to get that information, right? So they know, wow, he has something I don't have, so I need to read the piece or watch the video in order to get that. Number 3 is you need news / intellectually interesting angle. So, one of the things that I always tell my copywriters that work under me and things like that is, it's always better to be different than it is better to be better, right? So you want to be different, you don't want to be better. So you want to come with a completely different angle, not just say, hey, I was consulting with a company that has like a bunch of medical pills, and I read the headline from the landing page they sent me to review, and it was like how our stem cell nutrient it was like 10x more effective than the competition. And I'm like, that's not really the angle that you want, right? Because then it becomes white noise. It's like everybody's making promises, right? 7 pounds, I'm gonna help you lose 7 pounds in 7 days. Well, no, I'm gonna help you lose 6 pounds in 6 days, right? You don't want it, that's not a battle you want to fight, because customers are just gonna tune it out because they've heard that before. So what you want to do, right, is instead of saying, I'm gonna lose 7 pounds in 7 days, right? If I was competing against a product like that, I would use something like ancient Roman tribal or ancient, and I'm going off the top of my head here. I would use something like this: ancient Roman tribal technique is now helping 300,000 people lose up to 10 pounds in a week and a half, and learn this technique, right? So if you didn't catch what I did there, I used news or something that's intellectually interesting of an angle, right? The ancient Roman tribal technique. Now, the reason why that's important is because what happens is, right, let's think of a market, right? This is basic, but what is a market, right? So if you're in pest control, what is a market? If you're in medical spa, if you're a medical spa business owner, what is a market? Basically, all a market is a pool of people who are dissatisfied with the current way of doing things, right? So if there's a competitor out there who's promising lose 7 pounds in 7 days, well, they would have tried that already, right? And most of them, as you find out, I mean, how many times have people come in from competitors angry and things like that? Most of the time, though, if they tried that product, lose 7 pounds in 7 days, and they're still in the market, by definition, they have to be dissatisfied with it, or they'll no longer be in the market. So for you to come in and use the same angle is not going to be effective, because they've heard that, they tried that before and they failed. So when you come in with a new angle, right, a new mechanism, as they call it, well, the prospect now goes, wow, I tried 7 pounds in 7 days, but maybe if I use that ancient Roman technique, it would have worked. Let me see what he's about, right? So once you understand what really a market is, you realize it's not the best thing to use competitors' angles, because the people in the market would already be with the competitor if it worked, right? So you always want to, being different is always better than being better, right? So, okay, so how do you use this stuff? Self-interest of prospect, evoke curiosity, new intellectually interesting angle. How do you use that, right? So, well, basically, when you're creating your headline, I'm going to erase this really quickly. when you're creating your headline, you want to, for the most part, make sure you're using some, if not all, of these criteria, right? Now there's a little bit more advanced criteria that I like to teach, like the 4 U's and things like that. I won't get into that in this video because it's already long. But basically, when you create headlines like that, you want to make sure that you use some of this stuff. So, for example, right? One thing in marketing, as you may know this, is you always have to answer the question, what's in it for me, right? So what we're trying to do with headlines, and think about this for a second. Why am I talking about headlines? And in YouTube video, it would be the first few seconds of a video. Basically, attention, right? What they say now is that humans now have like a lower attention span than a goldfish. Well, basically what that means is that you have 5 to 6 seconds to capture people's attention. And for the most part, if they're reading your ad on Facebook, all they're gonna see is the first couple lines or the headline. If you're running a YouTube ad, all they're really gonna hear is the first 5 seconds, right before they skip the video. So really, for the most part, the first thing that you say in a written piece, a headline, or in a YouTube video, the opener, it has to answer this question: what's in it for me, right? So what we like to do, keep this in mind, right? This is how you get attention: self-interest, evoke curiosity, news. That's the underlying foundation, right? So now how do we practice that? Well, when I write headlines for clients, here's a couple of things I always include in my headlines, right? Every good marketing campaign always has a promise, right? So I'm always trying to answer this question, what's in it for me? And the way I do that is, number 1, promise. Number 2, up here, helpful info. So promise, helpful info, or news. Again, kind of repeating here, right? So this is the foundation, and this is what I use when I'm writing headlines. So stick with me here, right? So let's some examples of some headlines, right? So what's an example of a promise headline? I'm going to use some classic examples from famous ad campaigns, right? So an example of a headline that worked tremendously, that was a promise, was how to, sorry, the camera cut out on me. I don't know where it left off, but to sum this up, right? You have the foundation of what getting attention, what you need to know in order to get attention, and you have the way that you express it in a headline, right? So you can't make a good promise in your headline unless you know the self-interest of your prospects. Now, how I go about getting this for clients is I have a way to conduct, at first I do surveys to previous customers. I have phone interviews. I scrape websites like Quora, Reddit, Facebook groups to find exactly what the self-interest of the prospects are. Right? So you have to know that stuff. You have to talk to previous clients. You have to use previous clients to get you new clients. Evoke curiosity. Well, this right here is a byproduct of knowing the self-interest of your prospect, right? So if you know what they want, well, you can make them a promise that doesn't include the answer in the headline. Hey, right? So this is how one of my clients started up a YouTube video. In this video, we're going to show you how to cure your tooth pain without using antibiotics. So he evoked a lot of curiosity, and also, a lot of curiosity about something I'm interested in, without giving me the answer. Now the answer was extract your tooth, but he didn't say that until the last couple of seconds in the video, right? New and intellectually interesting angle. This is why I read a lot of magazines like, I have The Economist here. I also have, Reader's Digest. I have Scientific America. I have all these different magazines because I like to not only keep up with what's going on, but I like to use the news to articulate something that's not interesting, right? I like to use the news to make something that I'm promoting more interesting, right? Because remember, like I said earlier, being different is better than being better. So what you don't want to do is you don't want to say the same stuff that everybody else is saying, right? So that's that. So I'm gonna speed this up and wrap this video up. So attention getting. Number 2 was a clear message. And number 3 was a call to action, right? So basically, a clear message, this is a whole video in itself, is just really, having good wording, good critical thinking here. So, I won't get into this too much, but call to action, this is important, right? Basically, one mistake that a lot of clients use is they misinterpret the fact that the word free is probably the strongest word in our dictionary, right? Now, what a lot of clients do is mistake that for people being tire kickers, which is not necessarily true. I mean, I like free stuff, right? I like getting free information or things like that. And I spend a lot of money on things. Does that mean I'm a tire kicker? No. So what you need to start adapting is a mindset of value exchange, right? Which is why for almost all my clients, I like to create free reports or free giveaways, because once you make something tangible in exchange for an action, then it becomes easier to get more customers. So for example, right? Like I said, worked a lot with a company that does a lot of, authority building, for example, for consultants, right? So it's not a local business in the sense where you're not going to come and get a dental implant, or you're not going to come and get a facial massage, but we had to find a way to make it more tangible, right? We had to find a way to make our offers tangible. So what we did was we'd have webinars and we'd have him speak, and what we would do is we'd create a report for people to get. Now, once people got the report, they had to give us their name, their email, their phone number, and that's how we made a lot of our sales, right? Now, for a local business owner, you might want to do the same thing. You might want to create reports about your systems and your processes and give it away to prospects, so only the interested ones, okay, they download this report, so they must be interested. That's one way to do it. Another way to do it is free trials, or come try it for free. And the reason why I like to do it for free is because value is often created after the experience. What do I mean by that? Well, if you are a medical spa owner and you're competing with 6 other medical spas, why choose you, right? If I have to pay $60 for a massage for every single one, well, I'm just going to go to the closest one. Now, you as a smart business owner realize, okay, well, I want to get everybody in my radius, not just the one that's closest to me. So the only way you're going to do that is if they value your experience. Now, they can't value your experience unless you give them that experience, which is why free trials often work. Now, you might be thinking, well, I might have tried Groupon before, or Living Social, and things like that. Well, the difference is, right, the difference between a Living Social and a Groupon and doing something like a Facebook ad or a YouTube ad is that you're screening unqualified prospects. So with Groupon and Living Social, these are people who are looking for deals sake, right? They created, they did a great job building their business, but they created a tribe of people who just value deals, couponers, right? On Facebook and YouTube, it's a lot different, because if you come with a strong message that gets the attention of qualified prospects, well, the reason why they're coming to your location in the first place is not for deal's sake, but it's for solving that problem, evoking their curiosity. It's because they really want it, not that they want just a deal for deal's sake, right? So as I wrap this up, what's some tactical things that you can apply in your business today, right? It's one thing to go over all this stuff, but what can you do to start seeing results in your marketing campaign? Practical tip number 1. When you are creating if you're writing copy for a Facebook ad or for a YouTube ad, the one thing I always do is I always write how-to headlines first, right? So I might, I like writing my headlines before I write the body copy, and then I come back to my headline and I make it more specific and I make it more urgent and, you know, more clear and things like that. But the first thing I always do is I write out my headlines first, and I always write it in how-to form. One popular reference is that if you write how-to headlines, you can't write a bad headline. Because when you write how-to, you're basically always making a promise, right? How to do blank is always like, okay, a promise, right? So I like to write how-to headlines first. And usually they're not very good, but I understand the promise I'm trying to make in my promotion, which is important, right? A lot of people try to get too clever, too fancy, too cute, too witty, but you just want to make promises because that's what's going to get you money in your account, right? So always write how-to headlines first. So I might write, you know, how to, right, for a periodontist client, I might write how to get rid of biting without spending $20,000, even if you've been to Clear Choice or one of the big box people, right? So again, not very good, but okay, I know my promotion, I'm talking about about biting, the pain that they're feeling. I'm not talking about, you know, and I might, but I'm not really talking about infection. I'm not talking about, you know, the effects of a root canal in your circulatory system. I'm not talking about that stuff. I'm talking about biting, right? So it really focuses what I have to write about. The second thing I like to do is I also like to write, so I might write 5 headlines that are in how-to format. I also write 5 headlines that are in question format. Now, the reason why I do this is because, and I'll bring it here. So after this video, I'm gonna do some client work, and you see all these stuff here are interviews from the clients that, the patients that my client has already done business on. Now, what I like to do is I like to read through the interviews, take the most painful thing, and then just rephrase it as a question. So if they were like, hey, I've been to a bunch of dental offices before and I don't know which doctor to trust, I might just take that. That's a pain that they had, and I might just write how to know which doctor to trust, right? Because I already know the self-interest of my prospect. My camera's about to die, so let me give you one more tip here, and it is proclamations. This is the third thing I like to do. Based off the research and the data I've already collected, I like to make strong proclamations on things that's already about to happen. So, for example, if I am somebody who is a medical spa, I might say something like, never use this, or I might say something like this, using this product guarantees aging prematurely. They're like, wow, you're taking a stance, and people like taking a stance. Now, I'm not somebody who's into politics, but look at why Donald Trump won. He's somebody that always speaks in certainties and proclamations. People like certainty, right? People don't like being around people who are uncertain, right? What do they say? My mom always told me that a woman likes a man in uniform, right? Because that man knows where he's going, right? And that's the same thing about your prospect. A prospect wants to trust somebody who knows where the market is going. So, with that being said, all this stuff that we went over, that's how you run a Facebook, a social media, YouTube ad campaign successfully, right? You have to, number one, have a list, have an offer, and have a message that's compelling. List, offer, message. Those are the 3 things you need in a successful campaign. And what you need to do on Facebook is you need to build your authority through how-to content, through releasing content on a regular basis, so you can always narrow down the amount of people that you're getting in front of through retargeting. And then once you narrow down your audience, you need a strong, compelling message that understands the self-interest of your prospect, that use this news to evoke curiosity, to get that list interested in what you have to buy, right? And once you get their attention, then you educate them, and then you give them a good offer like 14, if you're a gym, 14 free days. If you're a medical spa, free treatment. If you're a pest control business owner, free extermination, right? First free extermination. So that's how you run a YouTube ad successfully. What I'd like you to do is below this video, comment, what have you, based off everything we went on this video, what do you need to improve on? What's the one thing you learned in this video that you need to implement in your marketing right now that will help you start seeing conversions, seeing customers come through the door, and start making you a happy business owner who can rely on predictable leads. So with that, I'll let you go back to your day, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye-bye.